Yo guys, what's up? Midway here, back again with another one of these dungeon walkthrough videos. This time around it's gonna be at the other side plus 20 we did a couple weeks back. This was recorded on the week of Quacking and Sanguine. Yeah, for this first pull we're gonna be pulling everything on this first platform, and we're actually gonna be popping last together with it. And we also want to be wanting to use wings because the damage the tank is gonna be taking is quite hefty, so usually just sack on pull pretty much for this pull. The rest of the damage should pretty much be avoidable, so for this pull we really just want to be dropping consecration on melee. It's actually pretty safe to just go on melee, nothing really hits there so long as you are dodging the, the swirl things. And then yeah, pretty much keep the tank alive. He's gonna be taking a lot of damage here. We can actually use Divine Toll if we want to, just to have the tank, but if we save it, it's gonna be quite nice for the next pull because it's also going to be a very heavy tank heater pull kind of thing, you know. Yeah, so as I was saying, this second pull is actually quite dangerous for the tank. Just like the previous one pretty much. You want to make sure you dispel that poison debuff. And of course, make sure those interrupts keep on coming, just dodge the frontal of course. This weak aura I got right here is pretty nice. You can get it from the dungeon weak aura package I got in my in the weak aura collection on Twitch. You can pretty much take it out of the weak aura collection and like drop it anywhere. And then it will probably appear in front of your screen like right like that one, instead of like to the side or wherever you put it, so that's pretty nice. But yeah, we want to be focusing the tank mainly because everything else, just like the previous pack, is avoidable. If we can, we gotta get those purges going whenever the big guy, the caster guy with the frontal, gets the cast off, right? So that gives a buff for haste to any mob that gets it. That one right there, Darkness Embrace. Either you spell steal it or you basically just purge it. And basically that's about it. Just want to make sure your tank doesn't die in this pull, so long as everybody just keeps on dodging stuff, it's pretty safe. As you saw back there, after the previous pull we just sneak past the rage guy and we jump down straight to this pack. We actually pulled both of these guys. This pull, just like the previous ones, is gonna be a very heavy hitter on the tank. Nobody else should really be taking damage, but it's all about making sure the tank doesn't die. Now right after this pull we're gonna be getting Prideful with the rad that we're doing. So we don't want to use wings if possible. If you use wings, chances are you're gonna be screwed for the Prideful. So if you're running Kirin, of course, I think you're safe to use Divine Toll like whenever you need it. It's probably gonna be back up for the Prideful, but you really want to be clinging onto that set of wings. I would really advise to use Blessing of Sacrifice on this pull because it should be off in the first pull. But other than that, it's really about your tank by being able to survive this pull and actually guiding around and whatever it needs. And you gotta make sure you don't actually pull the rage guy that's gonna be patrolling to the middle of the Prideful. Right there on the left, you see it's coming right through. The rage guy is gonna be coming from behind. It actually stops on the stairs, so it shouldn't be a problem, but just make sure you can actually ninja pull this guy, you're probably gonna be dead. Now, as I said, we get into this Prideful, and if we actually save wings, we should be pretty safe here. In this instance, I'm still running Awakening and Divine Protection instead of having swapped to the high key sort of talent setup that I've been running recently, which consists of Sanctified Wrath and the Holy Avenger instead of those sort of talents. But as you can see, it's still pretty safe, especially with Divine Toll. And in this case, we still have cooldowns. Some of those came back up right there. You can see the Hunter doing big damage. And we're basically going to be using the Prideful buff to actually nuke the next Rage ad, which we are actually going to be also stunning with the Night Fae bot thingy, Now, as I said, this rage guy, we have Prideful, we should be able to nuke it. If if we actually get the interrupt properly as the rage is starting to be cast, shouldn't really be an issue, even if high keys. It's just about timing that one interrupt or stun properly. Now, if that actually goes correct, we are completely safe, not having any cooldowns here, no Divine Toll, no wings. But if the full cast go through, you might be screwed. Now, if you were running Benthir, you are definitely also relying on that stun, but really nothing changes besides, because, as I said, if you are using all your cooldowns on the Prideful before, situation is probably gonna be the same. You're not really gonna have any cooldowns ready for that rage guy, so you're really counting on that stun. Now, this corridor here is actually pretty easy to heal. There's some heavy hitter mobs that really make the tank sometimes have to run around and stuff, but for the most part, we are really going to be chilling. We just wanna, this first pack, we just wanna, do as much damage as possible. It's not much going on here. But for the next pull, we should be having wings coming up. And the tank damage is gonna be noticeably a bit higher, so it's both gonna help with healing the tank and adding damage for this pack. Now, something worth noting on these packs, and something that you probably already saw, is you can actually use Blinding Light if you're running that talent to interrupt these Blade Storms. It's actually quite valuable to increase melee uptime. You can also use the Blinding Light talent to actually stop the cast from the other guys that are going to be transforming into the, the bird guys that do AoE damage. And of course, if you are running Blood Off, you can use your Arcane Torrent to dispel the ghosts, but it's not really the safest option since those ghosts are probably going to be one-shotting on high keys. And as we get into this pack right here, we should be having every cooldown up, but we don't really want to be using it because we're gonna have Prideful right after. This pack is, it should be easy if you're properly stunning everything, but most of it comes down to landing those interrupts, not being turned into a frog, and then getting cleaved by those both Blaze Storms. As you saw right there, actually use Blinding Light to interrupt the Blaze Storms. You can also use Roar, you can also use Fear, you can also use any other AoE interrupt or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, right afterwards we're going to be going into Prideful. We want to be using almost everything here since it's a high key. We don't really need anything anyway for like the first couple minutes or rather seconds of Hagar. So we should definitely be safe to actually use those cooldowns, and then they will definitely be coming back up for when we need them on Hagar. Now as we get into Hagar, we don't really want to be lusting right off the bat. This fight is actually just a big DPS check, so what we want to do is save lust for like the second shield. So that's gonna be around like 50% HP or so. And since this is basically a DPS deck, we want to be doing as much damage as possible. The healing requirements aren't really that big early on, so you should definitely be capitalizing on that and be adding as much damage as possible. You feel the need to use Divine Toll early on. I mean, sure, you can go ahead. It's probably going to be coming back up for whenever things get sketchy later on, but I would actually advise to hold on to it, because you should really be able to push through these early moments of the fight. And then when we actually get into the second big shield, right after this Piercing Barrier, we go second Blood Barrier. So we are actually going to be using our immunities here, if we have any, that is, because the least damage people or ads take during this phase, the least the barrier is gonna be. So you're gonna get smaller barrier to DPS down if people take less damage and if the ads are dead. So for that reason, we either want to be immuning a lot or using actual personals and Devo. That will just mean that the barrier is easy to DPS down, and we actually want to be pushing the boss here before the next barrier if possible. Now here, since the boss is, you know, it's a 20, we're not really able to push before that barrier, but we get another one and we just push that one very hard. Actually use Devo, not Devo, AM for that one. Actually, yeah, Devo, what am I saying? And yeah, we just managed to push through it. Before we get the next blood barrier here, it's actually getting pretty sketchy. And if we actually get that, it's pretty close to a wipe at this point. It's not just that, but it's also the fact that you lose such a big amount of time if you actually get another barrier at that point. And as you can see there, it's actually getting so sketchy and we actually lose people to it, but we actually managed to, you know, kind of get it in time, right about the time when we actually wanted to kill it. As you just saw right there, as we get into this next pull, but as you kill Hagar, the struggles of being a paladin become really apparent, as you gotta horse your way back, being really slow, and everybody is, you know, the pull has already started by the time I get here, so yeah, that just really shows the picture of how slow it's being a paladin, and it's really apparent in this dungeon. But for this pull, we really don't want to do anything special. You know, we actually pull the what you call the excavator kind of thing with one of the headless clients from upper head. It's kind of nice because you can actually DPS the headless client while you're aligning the other thing. But we don't really want to be using any cooldowns here. I mean, that's no need for it as long as everything's just, you know, line of sighted. Because we're actually definitely going to be needing them on the next pull, since it's going to be doing a lot of damage in the tank with all of those headless clients and the dog. So as I said before, for this pull we want to be using wings, and we can pretty much use any cooldown here. This pack actually does quite a lot of damage and it's pretty dangerous for the tank. Anybody else, especially if you're stacking range like we are, should be pretty safe. The AoE that stuns, it's not a problem with ranged people, but if you're stacking melees and they're getting hit by the AoE from these headless clients, you're probably gonna be having a bit of a hard time on this pack. Now I'm using Divine Toll here because, I mean, there's no reason to use it, but it's probably gonna be a lifesaver for the tank if it gets actually quite low. And right here is a very good pull to use, you know, Sacrifice or Blessing of Sacrifice whenever the tank calls for it ideally. Well, with this route that we're doing right now, we are actually gonna be invising all past these lubricators, so the tank, or rather one of the hunters, pulls away one of those excavators, He waits for us to get through, then he feign deaths, and the rest of us just use an Invis potion and get straight away to the slimes. Now these slimes do a lot of damage, and they're actually very dangerous because if they all sync up and like cast on the same target, it's probably gonna get one shot, right? So for the route that we're playing right now, we are not gonna be getting Prideful after them, so we are safe to use any cooldowns we want. We probably won't need them straight away on the next boss. We just really want to make sure that, you know, we are never interrupting any casts that go on the tank, and we're paying close attention to if any of those casts, you know, there's a lot of them going on the same person. So it's a pretty good idea to get that weak aura that shows the target on the nameplates like I am using. I think you can also find that weak aura on my weak aura collection, and you can find that on my Twitch channel. And yeah, that really helps to actually see who's gonna be the one who's gonna get the oil cast. Right there you see I got 2 back to back, and I was nuked because there was no interrupts, no stuns. So you really want to make sure that you can avoid that. And right there I didn't use wings, but I realized after the fact that I was completely safe to use them. I'm not sure if they came off cooldown recently, but you're definitely safe to use wings there if you didn't. Well, if you are basically doing the same kind of pulls as we are. Now if you were to instead be having killed the lubricators as other routes usually do, and you were to have Prideful before this boss, you want to actually, you know, not use cooldowns and just save them for the Prideful, because the lubricators should be pretty easy. There shouldn't really be much damage going on there, and yeah, you're basically way off saving wings if that's the case. I mean, if you have got that is if you're gonna get Prideful for before this boss. This boss is actually quite dangerous. It does quite some damage. You want to make sure the laser goes through, of course, and you want to make sure those laser beams are being soaked by somebody in their, you know, in their way to the boss. So the way you make sure the laser goes through is just one person stand on one side, you stand on the other side, and you want to make sure you don't get in the path of the laser, otherwise you will get stunned. Sometimes it's actually pretty hard to get that done properly, because you might be the person who is soaking one of the other beams, and you get the laser on you, so you kinda gotta decide, either you sidestep the laser and you don't get the stun, or you let one of the ticks of the AoE go through when the beam actually reaches the boss. And it's always the best idea to let one of the beams, one of the ticks of the AoE go through. It's always gonna be better than actually getting stunned, because the stun does a lot of damage, and chances are you're gonna die, and the tick will go through anyway. Now when we actually face the boss here, we have been recently trying to get it into this corner here. And the reason for that is because she's gonna be casting those bombs, and when she's in this corner she can only really cast the bombs towards one direction. Actually there's 2 directions, but nevertheless they're gonna be running right through you, so you can actually click them on the way and not have to run to wherever they are going to be spawning, or rather stopping. And you can just get them right through there and keep up your abdomen melee. Now of course you want to get the stun there to avoid any other AoE damage, but if the stun was to be missed and you had every single cooldown, you might be able to survive if you have Divine Toll, if you have Devo, or even Wings there, but of course if that stun actually misses, chances are you're doomed anyway, right? That's not supposed to happen. Now for this fight, even if we can get Wings back, I would say we're safe to use them here. There's plenty of time until we actually get to the next boss, or rather the next mob. So right here we just use them to add big damage. Yeah, we're pretty much chilling on this guy now, just finishing the next, the next boss here. Not really too much damage going on here at this point, so it's just pretty much about adding damage and saving as much time as possible, since this is one of the keys that's the most tight. So this time around the pathing of the rage guy here was actually pretty bad for us, so instead of just pulling it with the rest of the mobs and using the Orn back there and stunning it as we usually would do, We instead decided to just pull it right here and basically use immunities for every single personal. Now, I just got a Divine Toll right back up there, but if this is the case and you are going to be doing right straight away after the both known bosses and you don't have any cooldowns, make sure to call for everybody else to use their immunities. It's pretty safe to use them there. Right there I didn't actually have wings, I just got lucky with the procs of Awakening. But if you actually just stack immunities and you know, even Aura Mastery or just damage reduction cooldowns, you're pretty much safe to heal that with only Divine Toll mainly. Now our idea here was to actually pull the Rage Mob with everything here and just use the Urn to stun it and kill it down before it does anything. But as I said before, since the patrolling was so bad, we just decided to do that other thing instead. And here we want to kill these two guys separately because they have quite less health than the rest of the mobs. And since it's Sanguine, if they die and they drop Sanguine and everything is just stunned, everything else is going to be healing back to full after the stun, so it's not ideal. But yeah, we just want to pull everything here, use Bloodlust. Actually no, if we were to actually have pulled the Rage guy with this, we could instead be using Bloodlust, but it doesn't really sync up with our routes here, so we're just gonna be doing what people usually do here, I guess. It's just stun everything here, AoE down, and we're pretty safe here, not really need to use any cooldowns. And right afterwards we're gonna be getting another Prideful, so we're gonna have Wings and Divine Toll and AM for it, so we're pretty much stacked and ready for it. Shouldn't have any issues with it. Now this Prideful is actually quite a standard one. People have cooldowns here, so it's actually gonna die quite quickly, but I'm just gonna showcase here how I actually grid out a lot with Wings. And even though the Prideful is already at like 40%, the fact that I use Wings late and I am running Awakening instead of Sanctified Wrath means that Wings are barely enough to keep people topped off at this stage. There's really not enough time to make proper use of them, and they're actually running out here and really counting on Divine Toll to actually pop a miracle here. But yeah, that just gets to show that proper timing of your Wings is actually really important, and whenever you are using Awakening instead of Sanctified Wrath, Wings themselves can sometimes barely be enough to keep people alive on high keys, so you're really counting on the Prideful dying quickly and also getting those procs of Sanctified Wrath, or rather, procs of Awakening. Yeah, this corridor, of course, it's a bit of a bitch. There's many instances where I just bubble all the way through it because you don't really need the bubble for anything, really, after this thing. After the corridor, I mean. So, sometimes it's just safer to just run through it and bubble because, as you know, Paladins are wheelchairs, so by the time you get here, probably the pool has already started and you might be late to the party. But yeah, getting into Ardenweald here, we just do a big pool early on. We just want to make sure we keep on jumping to not fall asleep here. But other than that, pretty safe pool. We don't really have cooldowns after the Prideful here, so we shouldn't really be needing them anyway. But we are quite free to use Divine Toll if we ever needed it here. It's probably gonna be just for tank healing anyway. But yeah, these couple packs right before we get the next Prideful are pretty much gonna be just quite chill. We're probably even gonna be using Wings here on the next whenever they are actually back up for the next pack, because we still lack quite a lot of percentage until the next Prideful, and there's really not that much stuff that is threatening here, besides the big damage in the tank, that is, of course. And as I said right here, since we're still missing quite some percentage for the Prideful, we just decided to go ahead and use those wings for damage. Now the way I kind of measure whenever it's safe to use wings is if you estimate that there's gonna be at least one pack in between the current situation and whenever you're gonna be needing wings, it's usually safe to go ahead and use them. So long as, you know, things are gonna actually take a little bit to die, since low keys that might not be the case, but at this point on big 20s, you know, every pack takes almost like a minute and a half sometimes, so especially with the big kiting that needs to be done with Sanguine and all the star falling coming down. But yeah, we're still, you know, holding on to that Divine Toll, just in case the tank actually requires that healing, and if we were actually in need to use it, not a big deal. We are always going to be getting it back after the Prideful at this stage. Wings are like a minute ago here, so yeah, you just want to make sure you keep your eyes on those cooldown timers and really think through whenever you estimate that they're going to be coming back up. That really just comes down to, you know, your personal experience with the dungeon, what you think things are going to be, you know, taking to die, or how long things are going to be living. There's really not much that I can say about it because it depends so much on your group and of, you know, how you are used to dealing with these kind of things. Now all of these packs actually do a lot of damage on the tank, especially this one, because we get these guys that stack the dot on the tank. So even if we get wings back up during this pack, we really gotta be stingy with them. We gotta be holding on to them because the next step is gonna be Prideful. And the last thing we want is to actually come out of a pinch of a situation with the tank healing and then go right into a pinch of a situation with AoE healing. So really gotta be pushing your tank to use whatever he needs to, kite if he needs to, you know, make sure he doesn't die, but hold on to those wings, don't fall for it and don't use them before time. And as you see, as we get into this Prideful, we have wings, we have Divine Toll, we have Devo, so we are safe to just push through it as much as we can and as best as we can. This time around though, we learn our lesson and we use wings way earlier because we wanna get the most out of them. We kinda use Divine Toll a little bit early in my opinion there, but I kinda wanna use the buff of wings with them, so it actually tops everybody up, because the difference between using Divine Toll with wings and without wings is quite hefty, so we kinda wanna use it as a big revival in that instance. And as you can see, it's a pretty standard Prideful. Everybody's alive and healthy, it dies quite quickly, not a problem whatsoever if you have every cooldown up. This next pull we're going to be doing here is basically just stacking a lot of these small guys that are stealthing around. And we're going to be stunning them with the urn, so since we killed the bird things to the right, we're safe to do so without ninja pulling. And that basically means since everything's stunned, there's not going to be much damage on the tank here. And right after things start to die, since there's going to be Sanguine especially, you want just to have your tank kite around. So the fact that you don't have cooldowns for this kind of pull is completely safe. Of course, we always get that Divine Toll on a short cooldown, so that's always going to be our panic button. Always feel free to be using it on the tank just as a lay on hands. And whenever you see that the Prideful is going to be quite a while away. And as usual right there, after that last pull with stunning with the urn and stuff, we just want to run past through the matriarch packs. Those really take quite a while to kill, especially because the matriarch is so dangerous and has so much health, so we just invis spot to these guys, they're way easier to kill, and we're just gonna get about as much percentage as we need to proc the next Prideful. These packs should definitely be easy. Again, most of the damage is just going on in the tank in this dungeon. So we don't really need wings for anything really, we just want to make sure we got those cooldowns back after the next Prideful, just like always. Now, as I said before, if you played properly and you didn't grid and use your cooldowns when you didn't need to, you should be pretty safe here. Just have everything ready and up. Actually, this Prideful, of course, comes right before one boss, so whenever that happens, that means your DPS are probably gonna be stingy with their cooldowns, right? So either you call them out and say, okay, we need something for this Prideful, or you anticipate that's gonna happen and you are extra careful with the usage of your cooldown. So gotta make sure you're looking at that health of the Prideful, see how fast it's going down, and usually you want to be using your wings at around like 70%, between 70 and 60%. Right there we hold on perfectly to Divine Toll and use it on the last couple seconds whenever we get the most value out of it, and we still got that wings buff to actually make it as strong as possible. Now coming into this boss, we of course just want to be making sure that the debuff is being handled properly. Want to really be looking at who's got that debuff, who's gonna be jumping to. Make sure we don't lose sight of it, and we completely want to avoid people getting more stacks than necessary. And of course, want to be keeping an eye on it because people might be jumping or going up there, and the debuff can actually get shared while you are unable to be casting, right? So it's actually quite dangerous. And right there we actually get one that we didn't really expect, and we actually take some more damage from it than necessary. Now one little trick for this fight is that you can actually use Bop to prevent fall damage. That's something that I like doing sometimes on other people, not me, because you'd rather be using, of course, Bubble, especially if you get one of those jumpings or one of those jumps from the debuff when you didn't expect to, or if you just mess up and you somehow don't get a portal, so you'd rather just take it safe and Bubble instead. That's completely understandable. It's actually something that I've done many times. But this really is just a fight of keeping track of where the debuff is and making sure people don't get more stacks than they should be. And as we traverse through this last corridor, we again endure the pain of being a Paladin as we are. Always falling behind and making the rest of the group wait because we just don't have enough charges of our charger, our horse, or whatever it's called. But yeah, one little thing that sometimes it can be a problem is if you're playing with a pet class, or in particular a warlock, you gotta make sure they dismiss their pets or whatever they call the demons. And because they actually run through every single mob that you haven't killed on your way back from the broker boss, and that actually can pull some trash, and then you gotta wipe, and then you quite possibly can throw away one properly timed key. Now this guy is a pretty standard boss. I think everybody really understands what's supposed to be done here. This time around we are gonna be one facing it instead of taking a chill. Because even if we have 4 minutes for this boss, it's actually quite beefy, so we cannot really spare any seconds here. And we're gonna be taking the risk of actually not making the DPS check on the totem ads. But for that reason, we're gonna be saving cooldowns. In that regard, we're gonna be saving wings, making sure we keep people healthy without having to rely on those wings here. There's usually no need for wings on this platform. Most of the damage is of course avoidable. And even if you see big ticking damage, it's usually not enough to kill anybody so long as they don't fuck up. So should definitely be holding onto those wings to make the killing the ad coming right after quite faster and quite safer. Well, in this case, since I'm playing with the Guardian Druid who is Night Fae at the moment of this video, using wings on the totem mat was kind of a bit of an overkill. So we lost some value there by using them late, and basically, you know, we could have rather used them here because of course we get the big haste buff, and we get quite more value from using our wings here. If we don't really need them on the totem boss, that is, or the totem ads instead. And yeah, once you are back here, you're free to use any cooldowns, of course. You just want to be killing the boss as soon as possible. In this case, since we already one phase, that means we don't really need to go into another Shattered Reality phase, so it's just about getting the boss down to like 10% or so. And that's pretty much it for this scheme. And there we go, right there we actually finished the key in time. This was actually pretty big for us at the time. It's still a pretty big key regardless. This is actually one of the hardest dungeons in the timer mainly. A lot of the pulls are pretty hard and heavy hitting on the tank. But anyhow, if you enjoyed that one, make sure to drop a subscribe. You can also follow me on my Twitch channel to watch all of this live. Yep, thanks for watching, and see you next time.